This is what's working now. This is about ISHLT's member first experience. I'm Jess Burke, the Director of Marketing and Communications at ISHLT. Thank you for pronouncing the mouthful. This presentation in a lot of ways is a love letter to small and maybe my mid-sized associations, for folks who come away from events like this kind of thinking, how am I going to get any of that done? This presentation is a story about a time where we did. So I hope it makes you feel good. It makes me feel good too. I'd like to introduce Laura Graham, who is my friend and colleague and a senior solutions consultant at Results Direct. Do you want to talk a little bit about RD?
Yes, thanks so much, Jess. Um, and so I will say Jess has been in the association space for 15 years. Um, Lots of experience with nonprofits and event planning as well. We are both self-proclaimed nerds. So please excuse us, bear with us as we nerd out a little bit. We do get excited about what we're talking about, and we enjoy working together. So, Results Direct, for almost 30 years now, we have been providing award winning website design and mobile app solutions for associations. We are currently privileged to work with over 300 member based organizations around the world. A lot of our staff, while we work for associations, a lot of our staff has actually worked in associations themselves and bringing that experience to the table. But today we want to talk about ISHLT. We want to talk about their website redesign. So, Jess, will you tell us a little bit more about ISHLT so we can get familiar?
Yeah. So we are a medical nonprofit, a society headquartered here in Chicago. Our office is downtown. And we have over 3,600 members from over 60 countries. The deal with us is that we are multidisciplinary and multinational, which means that our society is inclusive of folks from all kinds of disciplines. It says 10 professional communities. Really, it's like dozens of specialties. So we've got everybody from surgeons, nurses, pathologists, infectious disease folks, all the way to your med students and your trainees. So it's a really, really broad group with too many personas to possibly count when you start to look at all the things that they do, all the places that they work, the countries they're in, the languages they speak. It's very complex. And we are small and mighty. We have 13 staff right now. At the time of the redesign, we had 12. So this is definitely a story about punching above our weight. When I started at the society in 2020, they had never had a dedicated marketing person on staff. So it was an exciting and terrifying time in the in the world and in my career. And a lot of it was about building processes from scratch. We had to get a plan in place for writing emails, cleaning up our newsletter, figuring out what we were doing on social. And from day one, it was really, there was a lot to cover before we even got to the website. Although I will say that I knew on the day that I was interviewed that a website redesign was in the cards for us. You can see some images of the website that we had here. At the time that we launched the redesign, when I started, the site was about 2 or 3 years old. So by the time we got around to the redesign, it was pushing 5, 6 years, which for a website is geriatric. It had some UX problems. It had sort of the issue of it had been built upon itself for so long that the parts kind of no longer made sense together. My fellow horror movie fans will recognize it's sort of a Cronenberg situation, both on the front and the back end. Very challenging to manage for staff. We had a really complicated CMS, a beautiful platform called Kentico, which I like to say that for us, for what we were doing, for our level of tech savvy, we don't have a DTP, we don't have an IT person on staff. So this was like having a Cadillac when what we needed was a nice bicycle. So it was a little much for us. And I knew that the website had become a pretty serious roadblock. Whenever it came to looking at Association 4.0 type stuff, it was pretty clear that there wasn't really anything we could do until we got this website managed. I didn't have good metrics. I didn't know how many visitors I had. I didn't know what they were looking for. Lots of black holes coming up when I was trying to talk about the answers to the questions that our leaders obviously had. So this became that process of securing buy-in and kind of agreeing to invest in change. I had to show people on a regular basis that the website was this roadblock, which meant talking a lot. I felt like a broken record. I talked about our digital presence. It felt like every day, and really connecting the dots for my colleagues and also for the board and the leadership about the challenges that this site was posing for us. So we talked a lot about what kind of improvements were needed and also what those improvements would enable us to do. Things like personalization, things like targeting for different regions of the world, different professions, all of those things that make us special were the things that were holding us back, kind of like our keynote said earlier this morning really resonated with me. Much of it was about empowering staff. We spent a lot of time managing small problems on the website is kind of the easiest way to say it because only one or two people on the team even really knew how to get into the back end and do anything. Small roadblocks ate up a lot of time that staff needed to be writing emails, getting the newsletter out, doing all of the other myriad hats, things we do. So it was a pretty challenging experience for us. We also wanted to leverage staff doing what they were good at, speaking about the programs that they were leading, speaking about the areas in which they were experts, and not spending a lot of time troubleshooting or on the phone with a web consultant. We needed the tech to just kind of work. Um, and part of that was about creating, obviously, ultimately, this point is last, but it was first in our hearts, a member first experience. We learned through polling members, talking to members, looking at what little data we did have. We knew that the site was not functioning the way that it needed to. Our communication survey, people said explicitly the website was unhelpful, it was confusing, they felt lost. And we knew that we weren't going to be able to offer those things like that they were asking for, like personalization or customized content, or the things that my leadership was asking for, metrics, data, results. We weren't going to be able to do that until we kind of got that site out of there. So that's where we were. And I often kind of, I had a lot of experience being at events like this and thinking that it was too big of a project to tackle. And then one day I had some conversations with my boss. We were leading into budgeting season. We were looking at our strategic roadmap. It became clear that it was time to start solving the problem. So I got to work. And the first thing that I did was write one heck of an RFP. This
Top notch, y'all. Top notch.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes.
I'm happy to share it. Somebody, I don't know if that person is in this room, but somebody on the association chat group, shout out to Kiki, shared with me a huge zip file of proposals and requests for proposals from other organizations. And if anybody wants it, I will pass it along. It was an incredible resource. This is why I love being in a room of association professionals, is we can share. Um, so we spent about 2 months, maybe a little longer, on this RFP. Like I said, we'd been having the conversations for so long that it kind of so much of it was ready to be written. Um, Much like the previous speaker, I spent a lot of time speaking one-on-one with staff, lots of individual conversations about pain points, about trying to draw the connection between the problems they were having and the opportunities that the website posed. And our RFP included really a strategic overview of the association, of the website itself, what those pain points were, what we saw the scope and deliverables as being. And I viewed that document as a jumping off point for conversations with partners. Because we don't have dedicated IT folks on staff, and because I had about a person and a half to work on this website with, it was me and one other person who was splitting her time with our grants and awards program. Um, I knew I needed a partner who was going to lead me in the right direction and take good care of us, and that we could benefit from their expertise. So a lot of what we wrote in that RFP ended up evolving through the conversations that we had. I talked to a lot of really excellent vendors, and I really didn't talk to anybody who didn't kind of come at us with what I viewed to be a direct response to that RFP. If they weren't answering the questions that it asked, if they weren't making comments on things that were in the proposal, if I got something that felt boilerplate, I didn't talk to those people. I said thank you so much, and I spent time really deeply interviewing about 3 or 4 partners. I was looking for a culture fit. Like I said, for us, that meant somebody with really strong project management skills. It meant a specific approach to leading us through the tech process because of our lack of expertise. While I'm nerdy and enthusiastic, I also know enough to be dangerous, which means I needed someone who would keep me on the straight and narrow. And I really found in Results Direct a partner who was going to kind of take us, in the right direction. Um, I also really needed to see a tech fit in addition to a culture fit. Part of that was about the strategy being data informed. Um, they shared with us some processes that they were going to follow. It was very clear in their response and in the proposal that they provided to us how they were going to take us from um, well, we know what all of our problems are, to how do we get all of the information that we need to actually start addressing those problems? How are they going to get member input? How are they going to involve staff? How are they going to portion out the projects so that we could predict where things were going to fall in the schedule? Those are really important pieces for us. Sitefinity as a tech resource was right-sized for us in that it allows a layperson to come in, make edits, submit a piece of content. It also allows you to kind of get into the code and look at the automation and look at the integrations with your other platforms. So kind of whatever level you're at, it meets you there. It was that beautiful bicycle we were looking for. So I was really excited to see it. I used Sitefinity in a previous life a few years back. Was excited to see that it had evolved so much. Um, the other piece of this that really was valuable to us, and that I would encourage you as you're looking for partners, whether you're speaking with them today or if you're in the middle of negotiations at the moment, is insisting on client references. I know sometimes we feel like they might not be that useful because obviously a vendor is never going to give you an unhappy client to talk to. I still think you can learn a lot, especially on these culture and tech pieces, from talking to those other happy clients. Why are they happy? Are their organizational structures similar to yours, or do they have resources you don't have that might make the relationship a challenge, or vice versa? Are they working at even a more maybe they have even fewer people than you, and yet they were still able to achieve success, and you can start to envision maybe additions to the scope. Those conversations were super helpful for me. Very good matchmaking on Laura's part.
It was like Tinder.
That was like
Basically,
Tinder.
yeah, we swiped right on each other, and here we are today.
One of the people who you connected me with was an extrovert who adopted me. So I needed that. So thank you.
There you go.
Thank you for that. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the results. It's in their name. Uh, and I really, the goal that we didn't mention earlier is about reducing friction. You saw on the old site just all these kind of different ways to navigate, really difficult to follow your eye, really difficult to know what to click on first, how you're going to get where you're going. And Results Direct really helped us envision a site with newer features and that repurposed the content that we have in a way that showcased our strengths. The big benefit, the big benefit of being a member of ISHLT is all of the member contributions. We have robust guidelines documents that are being created. We have year-round education. We have these fascinating individuals from around the world. That was not really present or easy to find at all on our old site. There were no faces. There was no sort of humanity in what we were presenting to people. The old site really buried the lead. We had some of those old-fashioned sliders, which very quickly learned was part of what was holding us back. And Results Direct shared with us some ways to showcase those highlighted featured stories that were a little bit more interactive and a little bit more likely to drive engagement.
And let me just,
Please.
can will you raise your hand right now if you have a slider on your current
There's
website?
no shame. It's a safe space.
No one. Oh, okay.
There's a couple in
All
the
right.
corner.
We can talk later. I'll share some data.
Life after sliders is beautiful. um, the design process that we followed was really one of my favorite parts. It really led us to a new expression of our brand. Um, we developed a lot of these new methods to navigate, whether you're an icon person, whether you're a menus person, whether you're looking for images or things to click on. All of that was really present in the design. And what you see on the new site today, if you visit it on your phone or you check it out on your desktop, is pretty much one of the first designs that they gave to us. So they really understood who we were and came up with something useful. and usable for us right out of the box. And Sitefinity is responsive from the get-go. So the site scales really well on a phone. And it seemed to me that Results Direct was designing, if not mobile first, concurrent with mobile. So that the designs that we looked at included both the desktop and the mobile experience at the same time. So the navigation was my favorite part, and I do just want to talk a little bit about, this is the nerd out part. um, the biggest takeaway for us from this project, and this is something I think you could all probably take a look at in your own organizations, is our old navigation, those drop downs mirror almost exactly what our shared drive looks like. So we were organizing the site based on how we thought about stuff. It made a lot of sense to me, right? Our CEO or anybody on our team really knew where to find things. That didn't make sense to members, obviously. And Results Direct walked us through a process of sort of challenging our assumptions on this and thinking about a way to break out of that staff focused approach that actually has really changed our communication strategy from top to bottom. This is something we talk about on our team pretty much every day at this point now, which is gosh, what would a member call this? What is the actual function of this program? Um, Results Direct helped us walk away from leaning on our internal brand language for things. And instead, a good example is we have a podcast series called ISHLT Voices. If you had never heard that before, you wouldn't click on it. And if you clicked on it, you certainly wouldn't know that it was going to be podcasts when you got there. So what if the dropdown said podcasts instead? Sounds very obvious, was not obvious to us. And I think it might be something that we can all think about a little bit more is what are members looking for and how do we help them get there? Avoiding acronyms and focusing overall on the function of the pages on the website, not kind of their surface level names. Um, the other thing I'll say too is about this design is it kind of reduces the Crayola look, a lot of contrasting colors. We've got the red for the heart, we've got the blue for the lung. The old site had this blocky look that kind of looked like construction paper. The new site really, like I said, created kind of a new approach to the brand that's bled over into a lot of the other things that we're doing. And I'm going to turn it back over to Laura because you've probably heard enough from me to talk to talk a little bit about the results and the success of the website, which have been really remarkable for us over the last. It hasn't even been a year,
Yeah.
and our whole approach has changed, and we're starting the process of moving towards some of these other these next steps.
Absolutely. So on the last slide where we were looking at the navigation, you would have noticed it said a 42% decrease in search views. What that means is that people that were coming to the website were not having to use the search function. They were able to find what they were looking for through the navigation. And some of the metrics that we're looking at right now, we're seeing the site launched in January. So since January, we're seeing an 18% increase in new users, new eyes on the website, new prospects, new potential members. We're seeing a 17% increase in user engagement. So not only are new people coming to the site, but we're doing more. They're able to find things. They're exploring, right? When they get there, they're engaging with the content. We're seeing an 8% increase in organic search sessions, which means people coming from external search engines like Google, dare I say Bing, you know. Um, but the right people are finding the content and coming to the website and engaging. And I can say, yeah, we had rave reviews from your leadership, but I know you were really running this and did a fantastic job in pulling this off because it's quite a investment in time.
And I will just add a metric that's not on the slide that I am going to surprise Laura with, which is
Uh-oh.
that dues renewal just kicked off this month and we're pacing about 50% ahead of what we typically would. So I'm really excited to start seeing, thank
Love
you.
that.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Really excited to start seeing the programmatic improvements as well as just the raw metrics. So do you want to say anything else about?
Before we wrap? Well, like several of our clients, ISHLT not only works with us on their website, but also on their mobile app. So this year was the first year that we, did the mobile app for their annual conference in Prague, with about 3,600 registrants, attendees. We had 84% download rate for the app. And not only, is an event app super convenient, but if you're thinking about year-round engagement and you're thinking about ways, how am I keeping these members engaged throughout the year? How am I messaging them with what's up to date and what would be relevant to them? Let's take email out of the question. Let's talk about push notifications, right? And once that app is on their phone from the event, it's a great way to keep that going. So I will wrap it up by saying this has been fantastic. Um, we are, big fans of the .org community and everyone in this room and what you guys are doing, and we want to be a resource to you. If you are thinking about a website redesign, if you're budgeting for next year, I know a lot of you are going through that right now. Um, Reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I would love to help you. And if you scan that QR code on the screen right now, it'll take you to a kind of a guide for putting together an RFP. Or you can talk to Jess because seriously, one of the best right here. Yeah. And thank y'all.
Thanks.
Well, thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jess. Laura, you said you were the Excited Nerds, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the name of a punk band, the Excited Nerds.
Yeah.
Yay, go girls. Right. Okay. Uh, I loved your phrase as well about we had a Cadillac when we needed a bicycle. I thought it was really a good analogy and it encapsulated what you were trying to say. The other two things about the presentation that I found interesting was that you said the number of searches had decreased by 42%, which means that your website was much more simple to navigate. And it goes back to what Stephanie was speaking about this morning and what Steve Jobs also said, which is that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So you're actually living that. Well done to you on that. And again, I think the other thing that's come through all of the presentations this morning is that the more you talk to your people, the more you're going to get good information. The more you get good information, the more you can create the right kind of processes and procedures for your members.